Welcome to the April 23rd meeting of the Rotary Club of Gastonia, where our theme this year is Neurons. Please pass the card buckets for Alzheimer's research. Turn off any noisemakers. Harry Petrie, will you lead us in our song and pledge?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let's stand and say number 35, Home on the Range.
I know you do.
Let's hear it now. Give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Now, if you would, please turn and find your favorite deer or antelope and give them a Rotary welcome. Good Lord, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Now, if you would, please join me as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our invocation will grant.
Please pray with me. Gracious Heavenly Father, through the abundance of your blessings, you have provided us the health, the financial means, the professional abilities, the mental wherewithal, and the freedom to gather, to break bread, and to serve in gratitude to you. Mindful that these gifts are fragile and temporary, let us approach our opportunities as Rotarians with resolve, urgency, and a spirit of joy. We pray you protect the shepherd's men as they run towards us even as we speak. We know that they do this to support those military heroes who have sacrificed their bodies and their minds for their country. Watch over all those who put on a uniform to protect those at risk and in need. And we humbly ask that this meal provide us strength for your will, and you bless those whose hands prepared it for us. In your name I pray.
Amen. Thank you. Health and happiness, Reggie Gator.
Thank you, President Green. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Any visiting Rotarians today?
Right here. Penn Castle, Charlotte West.
Welcome.
And my dad.
Just 30 seconds.
L from Grand Lake, Colorado. Oh. 8,400 feet elevation up in the mountains, west end of Rocky Mountain National Park.
I have as my guest daughter, Linda Russ. She's a member of one of the Rotary clubs in Greenville, South Carolina. She's here today visiting with me.
Any other visiting Rotarians? How about guests of Rotarians? Start on this side. Go ahead.
I have two guests. I have one of my high school classmates, which was long ago, and this is Marjorie Huntington, and she lived in England and taught at the DOD school, Air Force Base, and has just retired and lives in Camden. And this is her mother, who is my surrogate mother, Mimi. She lives at Covenant, and we let her out today.
Any other guests? All right. So, health news. Understand that Pam Massey did pass. She was a long-time Bell South Marketing Community Outreach Manager in this area. She was young, pulmonary disease at 66, so please keep that family in your thoughts and prayers. Also, our own Jay Stowe's father passed away just Tuesday, so keep that family in your thoughts and prayers as well. Any other health concerns or news need to be brought to the attention of the club? All right. In the news, Dr. Stout, you guys are doing well over there. Come on up. That was quick. Come on up. I see Charles Pearson is getting some money, national recognition. I like that. I don't see the chief or Dr. Skinner here today. Laurel Hicks, you guys were selling some books, right?
Just a few.
All right. Come on
I
up.
want to tell everyone,
Proceeds.
our numbers are down. We need some attendance, so all of you on your way back to work, just come by the library. We're open till 9 tonight, open Saturday.
Do it, guys. And then also we have, we've got quite a few birthdays today and going on into Monday. We got Tim Greaves, Deborah Ali, Barbara Voorhees, Don Lineberger, John Cloninger. I think 3 of those folks are here, but if y'all could just join me in singing happy birthday right now, please. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Robert. And for those that are present, we're like a jukebox. Come up and pay. Come on, come on. And while they're coming up, let's move on to Happy Dollars as well. Any Happy Dollars? Yeah, Tricia.
We'll be celebrating a new April birthday now. We have a new little bundle of joy that was born on Monday, Henley Grace. I'm delighted to have my dad, Penn Castles, here from Charlotte, and he's going to make an announcement about his Rotary's fundraiser for you.
Thanks for letting me be here today. I do appreciate it. I'm a Charlotte West Rotary. We're a small club. Y'all are a very large club. So anyway, we, along with the Charlotte Evening Club, sponsor the annual cornhole tournament. It's on West Boulevard at Bryant Park. I'd like to invite all of you that have an interest in cornhole and possibility of winning $500. Please come out. It's on May 2nd. Registration's at 11:30. It'll run from about noon to 4 o'clock as far as the tournament. Again, like I said, that you can win $500. So, particularly if you have that skill, I make it important to be there. But thank you so much again for letting me be here, and hope some of y'all will be able to come and enjoy it. Thank you.
I have 5 happy dollars. Our 5th grandchild was born a couple of weeks ago, Jay Alexandra. We have 4 girls and 1 boy. Putting on another hat, I'm on the board member of Little Theater of Gastonia. I would remind you have 3 chances left to see The Miracle Worker, an outstanding presentation tonight, tomorrow, or Saturday.
Cool. I've got 2 happy dollars. Marshall LaFar is here. That's all I got to say.
I have 2 happy dollars. One is for Peter Pan being overwhelmed at Gaston Day. And the other one is not letting Gaston Christian get out of the press. Gaston Day, I'm a board member there. We have some artwork on the mural.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, back over there. So,
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, guys, we'll close with a quick story I came across this week. Private grief. A man placed some flowers on the grave of his dearly departed mother and started back towards his car, when his attention was diverted to another man kneeling at a grave. The man seemed to be praying with profound intensity and kept repeating, "Why did you have to die? Why did you have to die?" The first man approached him and said, "Sir, I don't want to interfere with your private grief, but this demonstration of pain is more than I've ever seen before. For whom do you mourn so deeply? A child? A parent?" The mourner took a moment to collect himself, then replied, "My wife's first husband."
I was borderline, really. Funny, but borderline. I'm ashamed of myself for laughing at that. Not really. Spring Social coming up May 7th. If you did not receive your invitation, let us know at the Sergeant at Arms table. We do have a few extra ones here today. Fabulous barbecue out at Laurel Hill Farm. Beautiful place. We were there last year. They are welcoming us back. Live music. It's going to be a great afternoon, so make sure you get your reservations in. We do have to guarantee a week ahead of time, so we need to know. You don't have to pay us right now, but if you're coming, please let us know back at the sign-up table at the Sergeant at Arms. Harry Petrie, a couple of words about Shepherd's Men.
If you would, on your table, there's our last and final handout. If you would take a minute and get those and spread them around the table. It takes exactly 15 seconds to read the page with the dollar mark on it. So start reading right now. Slow readers, there's 10 more seconds. Thank you all very much. I hope to see you tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you, Harry. Next week, Suzanne Ray will be here. Suzanne Ray is the past president of the Cairns Sunrise Club in Australia. She has been a major fundraiser for various Rotary projects. Most recently, she was the initiator with another Rotary friend of hers of the world's greatest meal to end polio. She is traveling the globe carrying the Rotary Flame, which is kind of our version of the Olympic flame. It was created when India became polio-free in March of last year. It is a big deal to have her at our club. She has raised nearly $3 million this year towards the battle to eradicate polio. So Suzanne and the Rotary Flame will be here. We are going to have a special Southern meal to welcome her. We're going to be taking a special collection for polio that we would like in lieu of a gift. She doesn't want to have to carry anything else on her continuing travels. She and the Flame will end up in Sao Paulo at the International Convention, so Chuck can keep an eye on her there. Also, following the meeting next week at 2 o'clock, immediately following our meeting, we're going to have a special photo opportunity event on the front steps of the old North Carolina Orthopedic Hospital. R.B. Babington, who lobbied the state legislature for 12 years in order to get the orthopedic hospital built, was a charter member of this club. And we have at least one of his direct descendants joining us next week as our club's guest, who will be in this photograph with Suzanne and the Rotary Flame on the front steps of the orthopedic hospital. Please dress like you're going to have your school picture made and join us if you can. It's been a while since we had a club photo, so if we can get a large number of club members out there too, that would be great. Merriman Castles, would you please introduce our speaker?
Good afternoon. I was very excited when I received Ring's email on Sunday morning, and she said that Patricia was going to be here speaking, and I said, I know her. I'm very excited because this is an amazing woman, and we are very, very fortunate to have her here speaking, and I hate that I have to read and can't just spell it all off the top of my head, but it's too much. I mean, y'all are going to wonder what y'all been doing after you hear this. Patricia Schaefer is a Rotary Peace Fellow, having completed the program at the Rotary Peace Center of Bangkok, Thailand. She is also a former Rotary ambassadorial scholar. Patricia is a Chief Catalyst, I love that, Chief Catalyst, and Executive Director for the nonprofit Mothering Across Continents, headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. The organization coaches volunteer catalysts to lead educational-focused projects that serve orphans and vulnerable children around the world. Many of these projects have been launched in conflict and post-conflict countries and communities, including South Africa, Rwanda, South Sudan, Liberia, Bolivia, and Mexico. And I shared in my new member talk that I had participated on a project, Stepping Stones in Mexico, and this is one of, now has been adopted by Patricia's organization. So this was really exciting. Through Mothering Across Continents, Patricia also delivers global education and service training to local schools. The New Gen Peace Builders education program that she developed is endorsed by the Rotary Action Group for Peace and District 7680 Youth Services Committee. Previously, Patricia held management roles at Kraft Foods, the retail group of Bank One, which merged into the retail group for J.P. Morgan Chase, and an international consulting firm. Patricia holds an MSc in consulting and coaching for change from Oxford University in the UK, and HEC in France. I'm not sure what that is, but it's cool. She said, I don't know what it is, but it's cool. An MBA from the Northwestern University Kellogg Graduate School of Management, and an an MA in journalism from the Ohio State University. She and her husband Dan have completed marathons in the U.S., Greece, Chile, the Antarctic, and Myanmar. Wow. Thank you for coming. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you. And I love small world stories, although actually somebody taught me recently to say, it's not a small world, it's a big world. It's just that people of like mind and hearts start to bump into each other in the same channels. So today it was a great surprise to hear that you have a member who helped start a project that's now on the platform of Mothering Across Continents, which is the organization I had. But then in some ways it's not a surprise if you follow that maxim. So it's great to see you. As you can see, we've lost our screen.
Let me see if I can find it.
But you might have noticed that there was a slide up for a while that said Rotary International, the perfect platform for peace, and Rotary Clubs, the perfect platform for peace education. So that's, technically the title of my presentation today. But when I walked in today, President Stafford, you might have noticed, is wearing this really interesting t-shirt. She's got a big old peace sign on her t-shirt, right? And so when I saw her, I thought, well, okay, Rotary International, the perfect platform for peace. Rotary Clubs, the perfect platform for peace education, which is a little bit about what I'll talk about today. But why not President Stafford, the perfect promoter of peace in that t-shirt? What she doesn't know is, though, wearing a t-shirt emblazoned like that creates a new responsibility, possibly. On occasion, I like to ask very young people, sort of 8 and 9-year-olds, what do you think is peace and how do you create it in the world? And they come up all the time with the most straightforward, simple, charming answers. And one of my favorites is, ice cream for everyone. So I don't know, as a perfect promoter of peace, maybe you want to propose ice cream for everyone at some point in the workshop. So that's what they propose. And obviously we know, you know and I know, that even with the best intentions, peace is not that simple. And so really what I've been asked to talk about today is a program that I helped create, that I co-founded, called New Gen Peace Builders. But to do that in such a way that you come to understand how that program came to be and how that program couldn't exist if it weren't for the power of Rotary International, supported by Rotarians like you and Rotary clubs. And so I'm going to give you sort of the magical mystery tour or a whirlwind tour to explain what it is I do, why I was chosen as a Rotary Peace Fellow, what that entails, and then really what it has to do with you, what you could take and do with that in your own local club.
If you'll step over this way a little bit, he'll get to the screen.
I do, but it's all right. Yeah, it's not on there. Okay. All right, so we have a technical malfunction, but that won't change anything. I'll just use more colorful language so you can imagine the slides that you're seeing. Okay. All right. So something that would have been on the next slide is, so it is an honor to be here. Mr. Beasley, your program chair, has reached out to me a couple of times to invite me to be here, and so it is an honor to now be on your program. But when he reached out, the most recent time before we secured the presentation date, I said, could you tell me a little bit more about the club? What does it do? So what activities is your club involved in? And I was wowed. I was sort of blown away. And he gave me this amazing list, which, maybe I don't remember the list entirely, but I remember things like talking trees. I remember a list of about 10 projects that you're leading in the area. Today, since I've been here, I've also learned about other projects that this club is really conducting. And so what that tells me is that you are really sort of a powerhouse club when it comes to service and humanitarian work. And so again, I enjoy the opportunity to talk about the Rotary Peace Fellowships and how they go to work with clubs that are very active leaders in their communities. So, I'm wowed by what you do, and what a great opportunity to share this program with you. So the reason, who knows what a Rotary Peace Fellowship is? Who feels like you really have heard about it, you know how it works? So the gentleman here, yeah, anybody else? Yeah, so the Rotary Peace Fellowship, yeah. So what's fascinating about that is, and this is why I call Rotary the perfect platform for peace, unbeknownst to many Rotarians, Rotary International is one of 2 organizations that was one of the original nonprofit organizations that influenced the founding of the United Nations. And when Rotary says, here are our focal areas as an organization worldwide, of course there's this category called peace. And Rotary is the only organization that and I've researched this thoroughly, that I'm aware of that can legitimately say, we are scholarshiping 100 Rotary Peace Fellows every year around the world. We have scholarshiped 800 Rotary Peace Fellows in total since the Rotary Peace Fellowships were started. And these Rotary Peace Fellowships, which Rotary funds, really run the gamut. So for instance, last weekend I was at UNC for a graduation ceremony for 8 new Rotary Peace Fellows from the Duke UNC combined Rotary Peace Fellow program. And one of them was a doctor in Iraq who works in, imagine, this is how you introduce yourself. Yes, I'm a doctor, I work in Iraq, and I work in the disputed zone. So I'm from the disputed zone. Right. And so he's, offering medical care to people every day when he goes home in the disputed zone. There was another woman from Thailand who's working on how to actually bring peace to southern Thailand. Because in southern Thailand, you may not be aware, in this beautiful country, the land of 1,000 smiles, in the south of Thailand, there's constant tension, constant public sort of disputes. A disproportionate number of people may be killed by bombings on any given day, and it all revolves around the conflict between a culture in the center and north of Thailand and a culture in the south of Thailand. So these are the sorts of people who are issued Rotary Peace Fellowships. The other thing about Rotary Peace Fellowships is the Rotary International Foundation the Rotary International Foundation, to fund these 100 scholarships a year, 100 fellowships a year at 6 universities around the world, has raised currently $120 million to endow the ongoing sustainability of the program, and they have about $30 million to go. And with that endowment, it will allow them in perpetuity to continue funding these 100 scholarships a year. But we know, and you know, that when Rotary International funds something, it means they're really turning to, the nearly 1 million Rotarians around the world who make a difference in so many of the projects that you're working on every day, but also funding of unique programs like this. So the idea of a Rotary Peace Fellowship is that candidates are selected every year whose work may somehow relate to peace in the world, or they're doing something where if they better understood peace and how to actually build it, their work would be more effective. In my case, I had a nonprofit, we're headquartered in Charlotte, called Mothering Across Continents. And we like to say that we are catalysts. So Merriman mentioned that I am the chief catalyst. We like to say that we're catalysts for helping people who want to start dream projects, usually education projects, in very remote, very underserved, typically impoverished places in the world that often are either conflict countries, post-conflict countries, or we've actually done a couple of projects here in the United States where, because of the communities that are being served, it would be considered a community in crisis or a community in conflict. So that's what we do. So since the organization has existed, we have helped support projects in Haiti, South Sudan, South Africa, Tanzania, Liberia, Rwanda, Bolivia, Mexico. We did try a project in the largest slum in Bangkok, which actually wasn't a successful project, or it wasn't right, it wasn't a good fit for us, and so that project no longer exists. So these are the sorts of projects we do. Because of that, and by the way, in mid-May, I will be traveling to South Sudan for the second time to visit our school projects in South Sudan. And if anybody's familiar with the story of the Lost Boys of Sudan and South Sudan, you also know that South Sudan is now officially the newest independent country in the world. It became independent about 6 years ago. A comprehensive peace agreement was signed after 50 years of civil war between the North and South Sudan about 6 years ago. The country became independent in 2011. And in December 2013, the country sort of returned to conflict, or began a whole series of internal conflicts that some people are calling political battles, some people are calling tribal battles, some people are calling religious struggles, some people are calling power struggles. But the point is, it's a new country finding its way. And so when I go there next month for 2 weeks, one of the things I will see and re-experience is the power of education in a country that is finding its way, where literally 2% of boys and 1% of girls, where we do our work, graduate from the 6th grade because there are no schools. That's the impact of war on the planet. That's the impact of civil war. So as a consequence of doing this work with Mothering Across Continents, I was invited to become a Rotary Peace Fellow. And in my case, because I'm mid-career, or what they say is mid or senior career, I'm not new to needing or getting a master's degree. That means I was sent to Bangkok for a 3-month intensive program that is really designed to take the kind of work I do and give me access to really understanding, so what are the frameworks of peace? What are the principles of peace? How do you go about peace building? How do you go about peace building in a way that you don't first do additional harm? And it's a 3-month intensive program where you hear from scholars who are, devoting their lives to the study of peace. You engage in discussions and dialogues with the other members of your cohort who come from a whole host of places. You do 2 field visits. So in my case, we went to the killing fields of Cambodia, and we went to the northern border of Thailand and Myanmar, also known as Burma, to see and experience refugee camps that have been, they're called displacement camps, but displacement camps that have been in place for 25 years, where children have been born into displacement camps, grown up in displacement camps, and will eventually find themselves either living out their lives in these displacement camps or finding a way to live and work in Thailand in only a semi-legal way, or go back to the newly opened Myanmar, which has been closed for decades, as a consequence of a whole host of things. So you do that, and then you are asked to do an action project. You're asked to really, really contemplate how will you put these peace principles to work. And in my case, I chose to craft Plan B, as we call it, for our schools in South Sudan. And the crafting of Plan B meant, well, we support schools in South Sudan. We're trying to address this issue of 2% or 1% of boys and girls graduating from primary school. There aren't enough schools. In a country the size of France, there are 25 miles of paved road. I could go on and on and on. But that fellowship helped me see that the likelihood in a new country that is born out of 50 years of civil war is that they will experience their own conflict, and they will have to work through it. They will battle one another. There will be rebel factions from various military groups that don't agree and are struggling to take control of the country. So how do you keep schools open in that sort of environment? And so my project in Bangkok was to figure that out. And so I have Rotary to thank for that, because with our Plan B that we created as a consequence of me going to that project, in the county where we have schools, our first schools in South Sudan, we are the only schools that are currently open in the face of conflict in South Sudan. So I thank Rotary for that. I thank the Rotary International System for that. I thank clubs who support the idea of peace through Rotary for that. But while I was there, a surprise occurred. So the surprise was that there started to be this sort of awareness within Rotary that Rotary could be a force for peace education, and peace education with young people. And it started with an idea of past President Tanaka, who said, we can work on changing our own mindsets around conflict and peace, or we can start shaping the mindsets of young people who are going to be our leaders tomorrow. It sort of started there, and then some Rotarians started to talk about the fact that there isn't an organized young person's education program supported by Rotary, and how could that come about? And out of that was born New Gen Peace Builders. And so I noticed in one of your brochures that, of course, you're talking about new generations, the way we talk about new generations within Rotary. And what we said was, well, now wait a second. Within Rotary, you've got thousands of chapters, thousands of Rotaract clubs, thousands of Interact clubs. And if we were to shape a young person's education program, so for high school students and young people in college, is that something, if supported on the Rotary platform at the local club level, could really be born and nurtured and expanded and eventually become a global phenomenon? So what's happened since is we have several Rotary Peace Fellows have crafted such a program. It's been introduced in Charlotte, it's been introduced in Bolivia, it's being introduced in Ohio in the fall, it's going to Thailand in the fall, it's being expanded in Bolivia for a whole year next year. We have cohorts running in Charlotte as well as Fort Mill, South Carolina right now. And the program really invites young people, primarily in high school, but as I said, also at the early university or community college level, to go through about a 10 to 12 week program that introduces them to five intensive days that includes foundations of peace, how to manage an effective peace project, and how to think about my own skills as an individual peace builder. In addition, it gets localized, so they get to hear from 5 local case study examples of people who are doing things in our communities that would constitute peace. And they, like I, do an action project. So what I'd like to share with you is when I say to you, young people as peace builders, young people doing action peace projects like the one I described for South Sudan for me, how many people think, well, that's natural. That's a rite of passage. Every young person should go through that. Of course they can be trained to be young peace builders. And how many people think, really, they're young people. They're 15 years old. They're 16 years old. They have so much learning to do before they can become effective peace builders. Now, be honest with me. Okay, so the first one, that's a natural. Why didn't somebody get to that before? Who thinks that? Okay? And who thinks with some level of skepticism, my goodness, they're 15, they're 16. You know, can you really count on a 15 or 16-year-old to do an impactful youth peace education project? So who has that kind of skepticism going in? Oh, and then there's the rest of you who won't answer the question. Well, I'm going to tell you what's come out so far, and then just invite you to think about what that could mean in your community. So we have had these action teams from high schools that have been involved with this, and many of the students come from Interact programs. We've had them, they get guided in a process of researching, crafting a project, and delivering it. They have worked on a cell phone drive related to domestic violence in Charlotte. They have launched a program to create gardens to address the food desert problems in our urban communities, and received a National Youth Leadership Award for the outcome of their project. They have tackled the idea of how do you provide education to Syrian refugee children in Lebanon. We have a project going right now where a team is reimagining its high school's hunger drive, because they realize the way they do their hunger drive is competitive, it's driven by the wrong things, it doesn't build community, it doesn't engage the students from their school, and so they have reimagined their hunger drive to do exactly that. I could go on and on and on. What I have learned is if you provide these young people who are hungry to make a difference in the world, they are hungry to be ambassadors of peace, if you provide them with a framework and tools and support, and you say, I believe in you as a professional, and I'm going to interact with you as a professional peace builder, what they create is amazing. So in closing, I would just say there's the opportunity for your club to think about doing something like this in the future. And if your president wearing her peace t-shirt or any of you would like to talk about that, we would be more than happy to do it. Thank you for your time.
We've got a little bit of time, so if you have some questions for Patricia, feel free.
Patricia.
What happened that allowed your schools in South Sudan to keep an operation whereas others failed?
Yeah, well, that's such a great question. So again, one of the beauties of the Peace Fellowship training is they really teach you, and we teach this in the program to young people too, how do you do a conflict analysis? So you can look at scenarios for what might go right, what might go wrong. You look at what's a theory for changing the situation. You look very carefully at who the actors are, who could influence the situation. And so what we were able to see was if we enlisted enough community leaders in understanding that there was likely to be a conflict, they were likely to encounter it in the future, it was likely that members of differing militias might come knocking on the door and say, we'd like to take the boys as child soldiers. What would be their action plan? So how could they leave the school quickly? Where would they go to for safety? How would they return? If there was conflict going on in the broad area around them, but the school wasn't directly affected, how could they continue operations? What would be the plan of continuing operations? If they lost some of the teachers for some reasons, how would they plan for backup? What were interim things that we could do? So, think about it. You're all professionals. It's really project management 101, but project management 101 through the lens of what could go wrong here, what could be the conflict, and what would we have to do in the face of it. The other schools in where we're located didn't have the benefit of that sort of thinking, so they didn't have the plans in place.
Tricia.
Yes.
In Sudan, isn't northern Sudan Muslim and southern Sudan Christian mostly? Is that how it divides?
Yes, that is primarily that distinction, yes. And so, for instance, in South Sudan where we are, you'll actually find a lot of really good work and a lot of really good support that's been provided by the Episcopalian Church, the Lutherans, the Methodists, the Catholics. So there's a distinction where we are is we also turn a lot in a collaborative way to local ministries to help us in our work. We have great collaborations in that way. Yes, so there is that distinction.
Can you speak a little bit to what seems to be so ironic that religion seems to be either being used or feeding so much conflict in the world today. How, in your training, how do you deal with that emotional issue of religion? How do we deal with it?
Yeah, well, it's such a great question, and you asked about the training, so the New Gen Peace Builders. So here's one of the ways we deal with it. So first of all, we take students through an exercise called Fables, Figures, and Frameworks. And in Fables, Figures, and Frameworks, we explore what are the origins of the way that we think about peace. And one of the things they're able to see is that often figures, frameworks, and fables of peace. In fact, there's a great quote from a very famous peace scholar who says, through the centuries, in fact, religion has been a foundation that teaches us values for living, and it therefore is a peace mechanism. But then we also allow the students to do these very intense case studies. Like we have them listen to radio recordings about ISIS on NPR, for example, and they deconstruct the issue of ISIS, and they're able to explore, how is ISIS using religion as a mechanism or a weapon for actually creating conflict? So that's kind of how we deal with it. It's really a program where we point out true statements that many of the ways that we manage ourselves today come from values imparted through religion, and there are times and situations where religion is used as a weapon, a way of fomenting conflict. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir.
How do you run a marathon in Antarctica?
Very carefully. Do you really want the answer, or you're? Well, okay. So you should know that when you run a marathon in the Antarctic, you run a glacier twice as part of your run. And you get on a boat and you slam across the most dangerous body of water in the world. They dump you off on this island. You do your run. Part of it is this glacier twice. And I say very carefully because we had the Polish national champion running with us, and the man flew. He ran this incredibly difficult marathon in 3 hours, which was Herculean in those conditions. But then we had people who slipped and cracked their hips or cracked a rib or got a concussion. So thankfully my husband and I were somewhere in between.
Wow.
Yeah. Any other questions?
How do these young people implement this training that you referred to? How do they crank off into some specific area?
So how do they do the project, or how do they choose their project?
Either one.
Either one. Either one. Well, we ask students, so before these trainings start, we actually work with the high schools or work with advisors who have introduced the students to the program to say, well, what topics are the students interested in naturally? What might they already be working on? What do they dream about? What do they speculate about? And then we take them through a process in the first intensive workshop very quickly in terms of refining their ideas. And then by the time we get to the middle of the program, these students are actually working through project management plans. They have to define their conflict, they have to define a theory of change, they have to look at what are the steps they're actually going to take to do the project, they set a budget, they define the support they need to reach out to in the community or in their schools, and then they also very carefully define their goals. It's quite amazing what they come up with. There's only been one case where I had to say to a student group, we are not going to issue you a peace certificate. You are going to fail. And it was great because the reason was this is the group that wanted to reimagine their hunger drive. We said to reimagine a hunger drive, you really have to talk to people. You have to talk to the students who are already running your school's hunger drive. You have to talk to the person who runs it. You have to interview food banks. You have to have a reasoning for why you want to change your hunger drive. And there were certain conversations they were very afraid to have because they didn't want to rock the boat. And we just kept saying, no, that's the point. That's the point of the peace project. By learning to diplomatically and gently rock the boat to reformulate this peace project, you will have had the peace experience. So even if you do nothing but that, we will call it a peace project. And they did it. And they learned the most amazing things about really the kinds of foods that we should give to food banks, the kinds that we give that maybe aren't the best choices. They learned that the students at their school running the hunger drive really wanted their help. And so they have redefined their hunger drive, and they will relaunch it in the fall. They learned that rice is good no matter where you go.
Do these programs run outside of the normal Interact program for Rotary?
That's such a great question.
And then does the club have to sponsor both activities?
That's such a great question. The program it could run outside Interact. What we find though, and we learned this the first time we did a cohort, is that the Interact clubs that you're aligned with and support, they're already sort of trained in service. They already understand how to work in teams, so we actually like the idea of linking with Interact clubs as the anchor or the force. And I know you have some strong Interact and Rotaract clubs in this area. We link with them, and we go through an application process, and they are welcome to invite other students into the program that are outside Interact. It can be more broadly than that. So it could be any of the above. It could be Interact only, it could be not Interact, it could be some mix. But we believe that it's also a great opportunity and connection for Rotary clubs to reinforce their relationships with Interact clubs by inviting Interact club participants to go through this process. Does that answer the question? And I'll tell you more if you'd like. All right, so I know I am so over time, right, President Stafford?
You're perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I apologize for the technical meltdown, but clearly you did not need your slides. You know your project, you live your service, and it's a remarkable thing. We're glad you were here. I feel a new committee forming, President-elect Chuck, that we need to be implementing some of these things perhaps with our Interact clubs. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It was a remarkable program today. I'm excited about what we may do with it. You hear from us a lot about why to give to the foundation. This is why. This is what the foundation does. It's not just give money, give money, give money to the foundation. This is the face of the foundation. This is what Rotary does in the world, and this is why it needs your support. Please remember to sign up for the social on your way out today if you have not. And if you'll stand, we will be adjourned with the full weight test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?